I told my boss she was too successful for me. Then she said, "You're the one I want." The day I decided to walk away from the woman I loved was the same day she looked at me with tears in her eyes for the very first time. I had spent 3 years convincing myself that dreams belonged to people with confidence, wealth, and perfect lives, not to ordinary men who counted every dollar before buying groceries and still carried the scars of growing up with nothing. So when I looked across that elegant office and realized my heart belonged to the most successful woman I had ever met, I believed there was only one thing left to do. Leave before loving her destroyed me. But life has a strange way of rewarding the people who choose honesty over comfort. And what happened after I told my boss she was simply too successful for someone like me changed my life forever. Before we begin, if you believe kindness still matters, if you believe people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. There are people who walk into a room and immediately become its center without saying a single word. Emily was one of those people. She wasn't loud. She wasn't arrogant. She didn't demand attention. She simply carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had survived storms no one knew about. At 38, she was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the city. Every business magazine wanted to interview her. Investors trusted her instincts. Employees respected her leadership because she never asked anyone to work harder than she worked herself. Meanwhile, I was just another financial analyst. My name is Daniel. I was 32 years old, lived in a tiny apartment, drove a car that rattled every morning, and sent part of every paycheck to help my widowed mother. No expensive watches. No luxury vacations. No impressive family name. Just long hours, honest work, and dreams I rarely admitted even to myself. When I joined the company, Emily was already a legend. People whispered stories about how she had started the business from a rented apartment after losing everything during a failed partnership years earlier. They admired her. Some feared her. But very few actually knew her. I certainly didn't expect her to know my name. Yet during my first presentation, after everyone had left the conference room, she stopped me. She thanked me for pointing out a financial mistake everyone else had overlooked. She smiled. Not the polite smile of a CEO. A genuine one. That single moment stayed with me for weeks. Over time, those moments became conversations. Conversations became late meetings. Late meetings became coffee after work whenever deadlines kept us in the office long after everyone else had gone home. She never treated me like an employee. She treated me like someone whose opinions mattered. That was dangerous. Because respect has a way of quietly becoming admiration. Admiration slowly becomes affection. And affection eventually becomes love before you even realize your heart has made the decision. I tried to fight it. Every logical part of my mind reminded me of reality. She owned the company. I rented an apartment. She appeared on magazine covers. I clipped grocery coupons. She attended charity galas. I fixed my own leaking sink because hiring a plumber wasn't in the budget. We existed in different worlds. Still, whenever she laughed at one of my terrible jokes or asked how my mother was recovering after surgery, those invisible walls between us seemed to disappear. The office began noticing. People exchanged curious looks whenever we walked out of meetings together. Rumors spread. Some claimed I was trying to impress the boss. Others insisted Emily favored me unfairly. The whispers never reached us directly, but they found their way into every hallway. I hated it. Not because people were talking. Because part of me wanted their rumors to be true. Months passed. Then one rainy evening everything changed. A major client had canceled a contract worth millions. Everyone else had gone home. Emily remained alone in the conference room staring through the rain-soaked windows. For the first time since I had known her, she looked exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. She admitted she was afraid. Not of losing money. Of disappointing hundreds of employees who depended on her decisions to feed their families. That confession shattered the image I had created of her. She wasn't fearless. She simply carried fear without allowing it to control her. From that night forward, I stopped seeing a powerful CEO. I saw a lonely woman carrying responsibilities that would crush most people. And somehow, without either of us planning it, we became each other's safest place. She learned about my childhood in a small town where every dollar mattered. She learned my father had passed away when I was 15. She learned my greatest fear wasn't failure. It was becoming someone my father wouldn't recognize. I learned she had spent years believing success required sacrificing love. The more successful she became, the fewer people saw Emily instead of the title attached to her name. Some wanted her influence. Others wanted her money. Very few simply wanted her. That sentence stayed in my heart. Very few simply wanted her. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of them anymore. Because I wanted all of her. And that terrified me. The breaking point arrived during the company's annual charity gala. Everyone wore elegant suits and designer dresses. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished floors. Successful entrepreneurs laughed while photographers captured every perfect smile. I felt completely out of place. Emily introduced me to investors, politicians, and business leaders as though I belonged beside her. They shook my hand politely before quickly turning their attention back to her. Their eyes said everything. Who is this ordinary guy? Why is she wasting time on him? Later that evening, I caught my reflection in a large mirror. For a moment, I didn't see Daniel. I saw every insecurity I had spent years trying to bury. The poor kid. The struggling son. The man who would always feel like he wasn't enough. I left the gala without saying goodbye. The following morning, I typed my resignation. Emily called me into her office before Human Resources even received it. She looked confused. Concerned. Almost hurt. I had rehearsed my explanation 100 times. But when I finally stood before her, every carefully prepared sentence disappeared. All I could say was the truth. I told her she deserved someone who lived in her world. Someone who wasn't intimidated by wealth, influence, or success. Someone who could stand beside her without constantly wondering if he belonged. I admitted that every day I worked for her made me fall deeper in love. And because I loved her, I couldn't continue pretending those feelings didn't exist. Then I said the words I thought would protect both of us. I told her she was simply too successful for me. Silence filled the room. She walked toward the window without speaking. For several long seconds, neither of us moved. Then she turned around. There were tears in her eyes. Not dramatic tears. The quiet kind people fight desperately to hide. She looked directly at me. Her expression carried years of loneliness, disappointment, hope, and fear all at once. She told me that everyone she had ever dated had wanted her success. Some wanted her connections. Others wanted the lifestyle. None had ever worried they weren't enough for her. Only one person had cared more about her happiness than his own pride. She said she had spent months hoping I would finally understand something she couldn't bring herself to say first. Then she whispered the sentence that changed everything. "You're the one I want." The world seemed to stop. Every insecurity. Every fear. Every excuse I had built around my heart collapsed in a single moment. I realized something extraordinary. Success hadn't created the distance between us. My own self-doubt had. Emily wasn't searching for a millionaire. She wasn't searching for another CEO. She wasn't searching for someone who could compete with her achievements. She wanted someone who saw the woman behind the accomplishments. Someone who loved Emily before loving the title. For the first time in my life, I understood that love isn't measured by bank accounts, job titles, or social status. It's measured by presence. By loyalty. By choosing each other every single day. We agreed to keep our relationship private while establishing professional boundaries. Eventually, I transferred to another division under different leadership to avoid conflicts of interest. People still talked. Some assumed I had received special treatment. Others predicted our relationship wouldn't survive. Neither of us wasted energy proving them wrong. We simply lived our lives. Over the next 2 years, I watched Emily continue building her company while also learning something she had forgotten long ago. How to rest. How to laugh without checking her phone every 5 minutes. How to spend Sunday mornings drinking coffee on our apartment balcony instead of answering emails. Yes, our apartment. She could have purchased a mansion. Instead, she insisted our first home together should feel like ours rather than hers. We chose a modest place filled with sunlight instead of luxury. The expensive furniture didn't matter. The conversations did. She met my mother every weekend. My mother loved her instantly, not because she was successful, but because Emily listened more than she spoke. When my mother became ill again, Emily canceled important meetings without hesitation to sit beside her hospital bed. Watching the woman admired by thousands quietly holding my mother's hand taught me more about greatness than every business award she had ever received. Years later, during one interview, a reporter asked Emily what she considered her greatest achievement. The reporter expected an answer about innovation or company growth. Instead, she smiled. She said success meant finding one person who reminded you that your value had nothing to do with your accomplishments. She looked toward me in the audience. I smiled back. No further explanation was necessary. Sometimes life doesn't give us the person we think we deserve. Sometimes it gives us the person who helps us realize we were worthy all along. Looking back now, I understand how close I came to walking away from the happiest chapter of my life because I believed comparison was stronger than love. It wasn't. Love won. Not because either of us was perfect. But because we finally stopped measuring ourselves against the world and started measuring our lives by the peace we found in each other. If there's one lesson our story taught me, it's this. Never decide someone else's heart for them. Don't assume you're too ordinary, too broken, too unsuccessful, or too late to be loved. You may be exactly what someone has been searching for all along. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that true love sees beyond titles, money, and success. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories like this to life. Special request: before you leave, please comment with the words, "Love sees the heart," if you believe genuine love is about character, not status. We'd love to read your thoughts and hear your own experiences. As I think about everything that happened, I no longer remember the awards Emily won, the headlines she made, or the business milestones the world celebrated. What stays with me is something far simpler: the way she reached for my hand during quiet walks, the way she laughed at my worst jokes, the way she reminded me every day that worth is never determined by a paycheck or a title. In the end, the greatest success either of us ever achieved wasn't building a company or overcoming poverty. It was finding the courage to believe that two imperfect people could build a life where respect came before pride, kindness came before ambition, and love came before everything else. And perhaps that's the kind of success the world needs a little more of.